Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for this early presentation. My name's Colin Newbold. I'm part of TLC, which is the big stand with the neon light just over there. And I'd like to welcome to speak to you today Sarah Linton. Sarah Linton and Dr. Amanda Potter work with us in a joint venture. So their company is called Zircon, and they work with TLC, where Shift happens, to run all of our talent assessment projects. So we're in the business of talent assessment as well as talent development, and we work with these guys to do that. And these guys are very, very academic. They spend hours interviewing people to try and find out what is going on in the world of HR and talent. And as a result of that, this is the second paper that we've had them present on our behalf. But this one is all about the future for you guys in HR and talent. And it's got some really controversial challenges for you guys, I believe. But I'll let Sarah deal with the flack. If you guys want a copy of the paper afterwards, what I'm going to suggest is that you come over to the stand, the big stand with the neon light, where Shift happens. You'll see the T-shirts. And just sign up for a copy of the stand there. We haven't got them here to give away. We'll send them to you by email. They're quite big, so we'll do that by email. So just come over at the end, and we'll take your details, and we'll get them sent out to you within days of the show ending. So Sarah, over to you.
Thank you very much, Colin. Thank you for the introduction. I'll try not to be too controversial. I'm not sure. Risque. Well, thank you very much for coming to listen to us speak. We are here to talk about our latest white paper. What we have found is that organisations have been telling us that things are changing. And so we really wanted to understand what the changes were and what the impact of those changes are on HR within organisations, and then subsequently what that means for the organisations themselves and the leaders within those businesses. So we wanted to understand the critical challenges facing the organisations in the 21st century and what was needed to do to overcome those. So we went out and we talked to a large number of organisations. There were 39 HR and talent directors within global organisations, and we went and spoke to them and did in-depth interviews with them so we could really understand what their thinking was. And we were lucky enough to have people be very open with us about some of the things that they're facing at the moment. So the questions that we asked, first of all, we were asking them to identify those micro and macro challenges facing the organisation. So we're interested in this because the market forces and also those forces coming from within the business really should be shaping the future strategic agenda of any team within an organisation as well as the wider organisation. We also wanted to understand the challenges those HR teams were facing as a result of those and the characteristics of an HR leader, and for our purposes, the definition of an HR leader is a budget holder. So the characteristics of those HR leaders and what it means for them to be successful within the changing shape of these global organizations. So we were looking at what the requirements were between 2014 and 2017. So what they will need to deliver in order to make sure that they're successful for the future. So let's start with the macro challenges. Not surprisingly, number one is the state of the global economy. Now, interestingly, is something that I think every single time someone turns a television on, you will hear them talking about the global economy, what's happening at the moment in the global economy, and how businesses have been struggling, and then subsequently how they've been restructuring and moving forward as a result of that. And there are organisations that have thrived within these environments, but things are still changing, and they are still in an uncertain state, although we're being told that we're in recovery as well. So also, the second point was around the availability of talent globally. Now this we found fascinating because you would think in an environment of unemployment, it would be really easy to secure the talent that you would need to be successful. But the reality is that people batten down the hatches when they're nervous about the economy. That has an impact on mobility and people's willingness to actually look at moving on, especially those people are very good. If they're onto a sure thing and they're in an organisation, it's the old adage of stick with the devil you know, than necessarily move. So looking to grow quality talent as well as acquire good talent as well. So the increase in globalisation. So interestingly, organisations used to define themselves as multinational. Now we're looking much more towards global models within organisations. So, to push a bit harder, sorry. Okay, so the next piece is around the increased legislation and regulation. You will know, especially within the financial services sector, you will see that increased regulation is having a huge impact on the way people operate. In some cases, people are being completely immobilized by the need to comply with regulations. Not just the financial services. If you look to the public sector as well, you've got organizations who have to comply with the boundaries of those policies and procedures and those social responsibilities. And that does have an impact on people's talent strategies. The pace of technology and change and digitization. So nobody wants to be Nokia or BlackBerry, where they were the market leaders. You need to be absolutely at the forefront of what is going on within your sector as far as the digital technology is concerned. So therefore, organizations need to be thinking about this. So in order to be part of that digital future, they don't just look at their competitors who are number 2 or number 3 in the market. Quite often, they're looking at their competitors who are number 100 or don't even have a number, because the digital market and the way people operate making a huge difference to how people should be looking forward. So the micro challenges, so there's things that are actually internal to the organization that have an impact on what we should be doing. It doesn't surprise you that we want to be strengthening and developing the leadership capability. If we've got strong leaders, we can get the best out of our people. And nearly all organizations nowadays need people to drive their agenda and make those profits that the boards all want at the end of the day. Successfully delivering organization change and restructure programs. So you've got Andy Hill here saying organizations need to take more of a long-term view during times of change and continue to develop talent from within. The number of organizations that take a short or medium-term view when they're looking at restructure, because of the forces that are coming towards them from the board and from the shareholders, has a big impact on their longevity and their sustainability as far as those strategies are concerned. So creating and implementing a clear talent strategy. We did a piece of research, I think Colin mentioned it just a couple of minutes ago last year, where we identified that actually having a clear talent strategy that the business can really understand and identify with and then apply means that you will be much more likely to be successful. And our research indicated that actually there was a big difference between what the business understood to be the talent strategy and HR. So this is still coming up as something you need to be thinking about. So ensuring diversity in the workplace, and we've got here Craig Wyman from Thomson Reuters talking about women within business. There's still a huge push within organizations to move forward the diversity issues, the women's issues, to get people moving through the organization and up into those roles, into those senior roles, and getting more of a representative board within organizations. You've also got the achieving of healthy level of employment turnover. Now, there were at least 4 organizations that highlighted this as a key issue for them. Their talent pipeline is directly impacted and influenced by the fact that the people at the top do not move. And it's a huge challenge for them to think about how to engage and keep people motivated and keep them in their organization when actually they cannot see where they're going to progress, where their next step is. So there were the micro and macro challenges that the organization is going to be facing, or the organizations are facing at the moment and will be facing in the future. And so we wanted to look at, okay, so what is it that an HR leader needs to do to be successful? And you'll see here we've got strategic and commercial, broad business thinkers, thought leaders, you've got driven by change, pragmatic. Now that's a huge amount for one person to deliver for an organization. But that's the reality, as far as what organizations need and actually are demanding of their HR people. So these are the things that were picked out within the research as being important. Okay, so we need them to be direct, we need them to be pushy, and we also need to be business focused, so commercial as well. So that's a tough act to follow. And we're not saying that necessarily one person has to have all of those characteristics, because there may be the rare person who does, but actually the reality is that HR is a team of people who bring strengths together. So we have here, through our research, the strengths the HR people and the talent leaders today need to consider and bring. So these are actually what the strengths are at the moment. So we have 57% of our talent leaders, our HR leaders, who are operating at the operational level. And 22% are strategic, 6% at commercial, and so on and so forth. So a vast majority of HR leaders are within the operational field. So this is where we should be. So we ask them, okay, so you've told us where you are, but where do you think the balance should be as far as the strengths within your team are concerned? And so it's 30% operational, 30% strategic, 10% commercial, change agent 10%, collegiate 10%, and technical. So you can see here from this graph that actually there is a huge difference. So 57% versus the required 30% for operational. So we've got 27% greater kind of strength and capability than the required balance within the team should be. And therefore, within all other areas, as far as these capabilities are concerned, we have a bit of a gap. And so if you are thinking about the structure of your HR team, the people that are around you, this is a great opportunity, because you can think about the people who are there and who can deliver what you need to deliver as far as those strategic agendas are concerned moving forward. So we know that HR leaders need to support and be collegiate. We know that you have to, the HR business partner model, it does work. And in reality, we need to be providing that service to the business, because it's really important for organizations to actually deliver that service. But a long time ago, HR departments decided they didn't just want to be that service. They wanted to be a strategic partner to the business. And so there's still work to be done. And Ulrich tells us that actually we're still not there. It's too much to expect one person to do the full HR business partner role. There's too much to do, basically. And so you need to be able to give yourself room within your teams to be able to deliver. And so thinking about that and making sure when you're bringing people through the organization, you're developing the talents and the strengths, but also thinking about that succession planning, thinking about who you've got and how you utilize them and the strengths within those teams, bearing in mind that most people will come up through the ranks and will take an operational path. You actually need to consciously think about how to create that balance, how to give people the opportunity to develop those teams, as well as bring that talent into your team for that balance. Okay. So, what is it that we need to do to make sure that we meet those future requirements? So, defining a clear and sustainable talent development strategy. So this is absolutely critical. A lot of organizations have been in firefighting mode. And so having a clear strategy is really important, and making sure that actually that strategy is achievable as well, and people understand what it is. So we need to be clearer. So this is Andy Hill. So we need to be clearer on how we enable the talent to develop in the organization. So we also need to improve management and leadership capability. We've already talked about this as one of the challenges for the organization as a whole, but it's also one that we need to work on ourselves. Quite often, HR is the poor relation when it comes to development, because you're so busy developing everybody around you that actually when it comes to developing your own teams, it's an afterthought. So actually having those improved management capabilities within your own team is as important as outside the HR function. So creating an agile and innovative organization. So agility is one of the key words. It's a buzzword. It's something I'm hearing pretty much in every organization that I talk to at the moment. And one of the things that I'm also hearing is, especially very large organization, to create change is like moving a supertanker. It takes a huge amount of work. So you may have the desire and the passion to be agile, but actually we need to make sure that the strategy is there so the business can grow and can adapt. And when we're going back to talking about those competitors, the number 100 competitor or the unlisted competitor, who is much more agile than the larger organization, we have to do things differently to make sure that we are efficient, effective, and agile enough to respond. Okay, so how can we achieve it? Talking the same language. I think we're all guilty, and I'm going to put my hands up to this, we're all guilty of using HR speak and using jargon, but actually the reality is that you're much more likely to get your ideas and your thoughts embraced if you speak the same language as the people around you. Now, when we're going to a board, what we want from the board is for them to listen to us and actually have a seat at the table. So we need to be thinking about what is it that we're going to offer as far as ROI, working towards the common goals, and then also seeing ourselves as partners and collaborators while offering commitment and time as well. So taking personal responsibility is a given. Okay, so the kind of questions that the business are asking us are, so how can we attract and recruit our talent, and where's our potential? How do we create talent mobility? So these are the questions that are getting asked to the HR teams at the moment. But that's not necessarily the questions we'd like them to be asking. We really want them to be asking, so what can I do, and what is my role in this? So there's an empowerment there. And so what's the return on investment? Really difficult to actually pin down when you're talking about HR. Return on expectation is something that we talk about a lot as well. And then also, we're talking about a sustainable approach. Sustainability in HR talent initiatives is absolutely critical. So where does it go? So talking about those change initiatives, the restructures, what is it about it that is going to be sustainable, and where do we take it in the future? So, to be a successful HR leader, HR and talent leader, we've got a number of capabilities that we've identified. And what we would say is, to deliver the change, we've got a 10-step plan. And you can have access, I know Colin mentioned earlier that you can have access to this presentation and also the report. So we've produced the white paper, which has this in it as well. We can send it to you by email. But what we're saying here is having a clear vision for the future. Make sure you have the right level of sponsorship. So engagement is absolutely critical. A powerful reason for outlining purpose and benefits. All of this is about making sure that whatever you have, your ideas, get embraced and actually get implemented. Having an external focus, so demonstrating that value to the organization and understanding the macro challenges and the challenges of other areas, but also communicating that change and that structure and the benefits in their own language. So showing an understanding of change, simplifying complexity. I think most organizations are full of jargon and full of complexity and policies and procedures. And cutting through that is absolutely critical to success when looking at initiatives. And then focusing on those core activities and the capabilities, and then creating a role that's feasible in the new structure. So our conclusion. The role of the talent leader is demanding. And this is where I'm not actually being controversial. I think everybody who has anything to do with HR will appreciate that there are huge challenges when it comes to being an HR and talent leader, because there are high expectations and quite often low investment. Central to the change is the impact of multiple demands. So you will have competing stakeholders, competing demands, and making sure the gap between the managers and the leaders isn't growing. So make sure that you kind of actually create congruence between those groups. So a blend, you need to make sure your business has a blend of HR and talent professionals. You also attract and retain the best people. And you do that by looking at the strengths within your team and making sure that you have that desired balance between operational and commercial strategic. So the next steps. So the core challenges for the HR. This is what we were looking at with the research. So what's the blend of the HR talent leaders that you need to be successful? These are the kind of questions that you want to be asking yourself. So do HR and talent actually have the same priority? Are there conflicts actually internally within your department? And how well are you partnering with your business? So are you just being a service giver, or are you actually being a business partner and able to deliver what they need and making sure that there is sufficient investment? So engaging with the board to make sure that there's investment in talent and the talent agenda moving forward. So that's the information that I have for you today. I was wondering whether any of you have any questions based on the research.
If you do have a question, put your hand up and I'll bring the mic to you so that everybody can hear your question.
This question, everyone. Second question.
Hi. The question is, one of the things you talked about there was the need for the clarity of vision.
Yes.
That these leaders were saying it's important to have clear vision in terms of the talent strategy. But then you've also talked about the need for agility. So I wanted you to comment on how they fit together, because, some of the experiences I've had have been that the clearer or more specific the strategy is, the less agile HR becomes, because we say, no, we can't do that. That's not in the strategy.
Yeah.
So, is it worth going one direction or the other and not trying to kind of balance two opposites?
Yeah, and I have personal experience of that. I think that it's a really interesting point that you have to have a clarity of vision. But I do feel that organisations who have a clear overall vision, but they have different routes to get to that vision, are often the ones that are successful. The main issues, if I think about some of the projects I've worked on in the last 12 months, the main issues have come up where people don't understand what their role is within that. So where you are changing and shifting is about making sure that you're aligned, and making sure that other people understand how that fits into the wider global strategic agenda that you're operating within, because it does need to be anchored to something. One of the things I've seen about agility that doesn't work is where people are maverick and go off-piste and very innovative, but no one is going with them. So you still need to get people to go with you. And I do believe that a clear overall vision is still the key to that success. Does that answer your question? Do you have anything to say to that?
Hello. Hi everybody, I'm Amanda, so I'm Sarah's colleague, and I just wanted to comment on the agility and innovation perspective, because in the research we conducted last year, we recognised that we were asking our leaders to come into the organisation and be agile, but also deliver the values of the organisation. So we want them to be consistent, but we also want them to be agile and innovative. And we're asking our leaders to do two things. We're also asking the same of HR. And there is a conflict, and clarity is absolutely fundamental to the success of delivering any strategy, so that we can ensure consistency, but also ensure agility. So I think it happens at the individual level and also the functional level.
Any other questions? Yeah.
So, Maren.
I just wanted to ask a question about talent development further down the organisation.
Okay.
So you mentioned that was one of the questions that you wanted leaders to be asking. And often you find talent development is focused on the senior levels and sometimes right at the beginning in terms of graduate programmes, but the middle management level is often forgotten. I just wondered if you've seen that in any organisation where that's done well.
An organisation that's done that very well. I think probably, Amanda, do you want to comment on that one? Get the microphone back.
Hello again. There's a number of organisations we work with who are really very good at developing their talent throughout the whole organisation. American Express is one, and they focus on executive presence as one of their key areas of their development. We've worked with them for a number of years. Other organisations that are good at it are HSBC and some of the big banks, actually. I think when organisations get it right is when the business partner really well with HR and don't see them as a service provider, they see them as a strategic partner. And what happens is the HR educate the business to understand what their role is and how they can be involved in the development of their employees. So it's not something that you do to the business. It's more about how can we solve this problem together. So they go to HR with a different type of question, which is more, what can I do? What can we do? How can we define, how can we solve this problem together rather than, what are you going to do for me? And yeah, that would be my experience. But there's some great organisations out there with some great ideas.
I do think that with the lack of budget, we're finding that that middle sector you're talking about are being quite demanding for themselves. So they're being much more proactive themselves in going out and seeking out their development. And so they're not sitting back and waiting for it to happen to them. If we look at our model of potential, it's definitely a high potential person who goes out there and engages and gets exactly what they need. Probably those of you who are here who are students and graduates are those people who are identifying that this is important to them and making sure that it's up on not just your agenda, but also the leaders that can support you to make sure that you can get there.
We're working for a public organisation. There's very little reward or funding.
Yes.
How do you think middle managers can motivate their staff?
I think that's really interesting. I do think that there are a lot of people now who are about knowledge and developing themselves. And where money isn't available, and I wouldn't say that public sector is the only place where money is scarce, giving people opportunity to develop and learn and grow can quite often be a motivator. I think that Daniel Pink talks about autonomy and mastery, and so there's lots of different ways to to engage people and motivate people. And actually, money and benefits is quite far down the line. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, it changes in time of recession.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Any more questions? In that case, I'd like to once again thank Sarah for the presentation, and I'd like you to remember we've got an army of helpers over on the stand, the Where Shift Happens stand, that are happy to take your contact details if you'd like a copy of the slide deck and also the white paper that Sarah's been referring to. Also, on your seats there should be a timetable of some mini presentations that we're making throughout the 2 days on our stand. Each one is no more than 8 minutes. It's just a taster. There's a schedule and there's a little bit of blurb about what each presentation is, and you're more than welcome to join us throughout the next 2 days on the stand. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you.